Hey everyone, I'm Kayleigh Robin and I'm going to be talking to you about label management, running a label in 2021, some digital trends. A bit about myself. I work as the label manager at 25th Precinct Music. I look after Limbo Records and First Run Records, and have been for the past few years. I also am event coordinator for Resonate Scotland. And yeah, really looking forward to doing this session in partnership with Distiller Music. So I'm just going to share my screen with you. Share screen to it. And hopefully you can still see me. I really hope so. So running a label in 2021 with myself. So yeah, I also DJ under the name Aluna. I've got some gigs coming up, so past few years learning to be a label manager has been great, because I'm now going to be able to apply it to my own artist project. And some of the other labels I work with in Glasgow are Tribal Pulse and Dealt With Records, so go check them out. And yeah, make sure to go check out the lineup for Resonate. We're going to be announcing it super soon next week, and tickets are on sale today. So yeah, some topics I'm going to go over today. PPL, PRS, and where like the royalty streams come from. Artist branding. How do you approach branding with a new artist? Choosing your business model in a digital age. And I'm also going to talk a bit about the streaming world and digital stores. I'll delve a bit into how I approach my release strategies and marketing plans, and what not to do. I'm going to show you I'm going to tell you a bit about some releases that I've worked on, and then at the end I'm just going to prompt a few questions to you about some digital trends, and like, do we need to be on social media? Can AI be implemented to artists? What are NFTs? So there are different collection societies across the world, and also licensing companies. And in the UK, we are looked after by PPL. So PPL is the UK's music licensing company for over 120,000 performers and recording rights holders. PPL licenses radio stations, TV broadcasters, and certain digital media services to play recorded music in the UK. So if you're a label or if you're a self-releasing artist, then you should, well, first of all, register your label with PPL, and then you would then go on to register the master recordings as and when, prior to releases. And the other kind of downside is that if you're a self-released musician or artist and you just work directly with a distributor, for example, like CD Baby or Emu Bands, then you don't actually get, you can't collect any of the digital performance royalties unless you're registered as a label with PPL. So what I suggest there is, so that you're not missing out on any of the digital performance royalties, that you just set up your own band label. And if you don't release anything else other than your own releases, then that's fine. If you get some radio plays in or anything like that, then you're not going to miss out on those digital royalties. And then just to differentiate to PRS, for anyone that doesn't also know, PRS pay royalties to their members when their works are also broadcast on TV, radio, or performed in public, whether it's live or through a recording. But these royalties are paid direct to music publishers and songwriters, whereas PPL pay direct to label master rights holders. And then the last one there is just PPL PRS, and that's where you would go to get a music license, just to play live music in public, so any shops, etc. So yeah, I'm just going to move on to show you, I guess, what like picture those royalty streams. So the performance, so the composition side is the publishing side. So performance royalties are the royalties that come through playing live, and you would register those at PRS through the live show section. Mechanical royalties are royalties that are generated each time a musical composition is replicated, reproduced, and that can be physically or digitally, or from direct downloads. That's still classed as a reproduction of the composition. And then on the other side is the master recording, and the royalties that come through there are digital performance royalties, which I just mentioned, and those are from non-interactive digital streaming services. And the master recording revenues, which is also referred to as the recording royalties, they're generated on behalf of the sound and the actual master recording rather than the composition itself. And you would get that via your distributor as well. So like choosing your business model in a digital age, like maybe you're just about to start a label, maybe you're you know, thinking that maybe you are a self-releasing artist and you need to have a think about what sort of strategies you want to do. So for independent labels, first of all, you're going to need to identify your goal and set some targets to meet. For example, it would be pretty handy to do like a rough 3-year plan and just nail down some goals and targets, and then you can work to them, because at the end of the day, if you've got nothing to work to, or you know, set some achievable goals, and then ask yourself questions like, are you releasing music in a niche genre? Are you trying to drive people to your Bandcamp? What's the best option here for getting your music out to the world? Are you trying to reach the masses, or are you trying to reach, are you trying to reach fans that will be fans for the rest of the life? There's, I guess, a whole lot of different options and business models that you can do, and honestly, you shouldn't copy. You should go and try and do your own thing. The streaming world, for example, is a very controversial sort of topic of discussion. Streaming rates, are they fair, and do we need to actually be on streaming platforms? And in my opinion, you don't actually have to be on streaming platforms when you're going to be releasing music on your label. Every single release that I have worked on has went on to streaming platforms, but there's certainly different strategies that you can implement there that in turn may actually benefit you. So I mean, a lot of the sort of panel discussions that I hear at conferences, a lot of the topics around streaming is like, what does streaming rates, what's the future, like when is this going to change, when are we getting better streaming rates, blah 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 blah. But I'm sorry to say that it's definitely not going to change. It's been over a decade now since streaming came around, so it's not going to change anytime soon. And essentially what I'm trying to say is you don't have to be on it. You'll have to sell your soul to the devil. An example of you could release something on Bandcamp. You could do a vinyl release. And by having that off of the streaming platform, yeah, you might be missing out on a little bit of the exposure you would maybe get, but hopefully, you know, when people do discover that your music's available somewhere else, they would buy it instead of it being available on a streaming platform. That's just an example for you. So I'm going to dive into it a bit more later on with some more examples. But when you're working with an artist, or if you're artist yourself, you might sit and think, you know, oh, what's my aesthetic? Like what, you know, the good old, you've got to stand out from the crowd. Yeah, great. Okay, no problem. With the amount of artists that are releasing daily, it's very hard to do that. So every single artist that you are going to work with will be different, and you have to choose the correct path for your artist. There's like a number of ways you can approach it, but one way, there's a couple ways that I normally work with an artist. They be themselves and they act, you know, just explore their interests, exaggerate themselves, and just promote their music through being an absolute complete version of themselves and doing whatever they want, you know. Be yourself times 100 essentially. And, you know, ask yourself questions like, what about yourself can you exaggerate, and then what do people like love about you? What do and then like what annoys people as well? That is also good to know, you know, you can play on that. So second option would be to like create a persona and a character, and you know, put your whole artist project into that, and creating a certain way and look and aesthetic, and yeah, like creating someone that you're not. And then another sort of thing you can consider while you know, working with a new artist is like what's going on around you at the moment, what's and tap into the wider discourse, the sort of culture discourse, and like what can people relate to at the moment, or what do you relate to, and what like areas can you expand your artist project in. So maybe you are a mental health advocate, or maybe you you want to promote something, I don't know, raising awareness for a charity or a certain topic, and yeah, just capturing like a whole nother area out with the music. That's that's I think that's a really good way of trying to expand yourself out of music, you know. At the end of the day, there's a lot of different branding techniques that you could implement with your artist, and like with some artists you maybe won't even have to do any branding with them. A lot of artists that I've worked um, with First Run Records is an example of, you know, and you just step back and leave them to it. They're, you know, some are super set on their image already, or they're already being an extreme version of themselves, and they know that that's what they want. So, but a lot of artists, you know, do need that lead and molding, and some are a lot more up for it, some are a lot trickier, you know. But that's a skill in itself, is learning how to work with different people and how to respond in difficult situations, and turning a difficult situation, maybe it's a disagreement, maybe it's not, maybe it's something to do with, yeah, a disagreement. So turning that right back round is also something you have to learn. That's some artists I've been working with the past couple of years in first run. Fauves, Quiche, Scarlett Randle, and then the last one there is Casual. Now, Casual's a new project that I'm working with, and that's an example of a project that we're starting from scratch with, and we'll be, starting all the social medias from scratch and looking into things like TikTok and how I could utilize that. Callum's got a very like lo-fi, hip hoppy, poppy ballad sound, and I think for that initially we're gonna, of course, I'm gonna do local radio and local press and send round to like all my contacts and the networks that I've built up with the DSPs and like not Beatport, sorry, like all the streaming platforms. But if I'll go and look at Fauves in the top left-hand corner that I worked with last year, I wouldn't probably approach that I wouldn't approach their releases, on TikTok or anything like that. That was a very like that campaign was very, we set out a sort of year plan with Fauves and made sure that we had the releases set very regularly after each other, like roughly two months or so. We had music videos, so a lot of their campaign was based around putting up digital ads on Facebook, Instagram, and the likes. So they also Fauves are an example of a band that know exactly who they are. They know exactly what they want to look like. They know what message they're putting across. Their aesthetic is on point. Also, when you hear any Fauves song, it's like that's Fauves. So yeah, it was really, really fun working with those guys last year. Keisha are another example of that. Unfortunately, I think they're breaking up. And Scarlett Randle, amazing performer, amazing. She has a really amazing band around her, but she is also a really great example of somebody who is being themselves times 100. Like not never looking back, never always looking forward, and yeah, really, really doing some really cool stuff around Glasgow, and I'm really excited to actually see what shows she's got coming up this year. But all really cool artists I've worked with on First Run Records, and that takes me on quite well actually to like release strategies and marketing plans. So I would say like I started at 23rd Precinct as an intern, and I learned how to be a music publisher, and then it was time to get the labels back up and running at 23rd Precinct. So my boss Billy asked me to be the label manager, and it didn't just happen overnight. It took there was a period of time where I had to learn how to be a label manager essentially. So there's been many times over the years where I felt overwhelmed, because when you come to a release, it's like what you have to do and everything that's available to you, but it's like, how can you even cover that ground? And it's about prioritizing. So what you need to do is you create a list that covers all promo aspects of a release, and you use that as your starting point. So any promo sort of option that's at your fingertips or is available to you, then you should write it down. And you should work your way through this list and identify each of the priorities that are specific for the release you're working on and that are suited. And then it gives you the list of priorities, and you don't need to sit and go, oh no, I don't know what to focus on, or what's the best sort of tactic for this release. So you want to promote your release as best you can and as efficiently as you can, whilst also still covering all bases. So when approaching a release, it can be very overwhelming, but with some of these presses, I can shift you from feeling overwhelming to organised with key priorities identified. So onto this slide now, and I'm just going to open up this. I'm just going to open up this label release plan that I kind of work from. So essentially, give yourself 6 weeks. 6 weeks is a really good time, lead-in time to give yourself for a release. So I wouldn't suggest any less than like 4. Of course, it does just all come down to the release and how, it really just comes down to your workload and how much ground you're looking to cover. So I'm going to just share with you my strategies that I implement for Limbo Records and First Run Records, and I'll also after that just talk about some of the other options that are available to you as well. So here you start from 6 weeks out, finalize your artwork. That's when you can set a release date. You want to get it registered with PRS just as soon as possible, so you don't. Well, actually, it's super easy to register on PRS. It takes like not long at all. Same with PPL. So if you're a musician, songwriter, anything like that, I would highly suggest you be on both these platforms. Just it's just beneficial in the long run. And during this sort of period of time, you've got your artwork, you've got a feel for maybe what the what it sounds like, you've got. You should sit down with your artist and start planning the video content. Whether you have a music video or not, you're still going to need some video content if you're on social media, that is. But for the purpose of this, so for the purpose of this release strategy, you're on social media. Also, create a budget. See if you don't have a number to work backwards from, then how do you know, and how are you going to figure out how and where you're prioritizing your time and your money. So ask your boss or whoever is in charge, maybe if it's yourself in charge, go ahead, ask yourself, get a ballpark figure in mind, and then work backwards. 5 weeks out is something looking more like you're going to be writing press releases. And of course, a lot of the releases with Limbo and First Run, we work with a PR company. I would suggest, like, if you were wanting to get a PR company on board to look after the press and radio side of things, then I would suggest doing that before, like locking in the release with your distributor and making sure they're all good with the release date. So yeah, PR company can assist with stuff like press releases and like it mainly just sending out to certain press targets, radio targets, etc. But in week 5, that's when I want to sit down and write my press release. And as a label manager, that is one thing I do struggle with a bit, is the bios and trying to make a song, type out how a song sounds. I definitely spend too much time on that, but I set myself that at week 5 because I want to get it out of the way and I want to send it to my distributor, I want to send it to my PR, I want to send the PR to my internal team. So Notting Hill are our publishing partners. They're based in London and LA. So thankfully at 23rd Precinct, we've got some amazing partners and team around us at different parts of the world that we can, update on our projects for them to also update their networks. Create a press kit folder, start your marketing plan, and research. So press kit folder, I'm not going to explain what to do, but that's a whole nother that's a whole nother discussion. You just stick in on Dropbox or wherever for your press release. Make sure you've got everything there. And yeah, the marketing plan is something you should definitely work on a little bit and put in some time to. So those two things are going to take some time. The research, it's like so important, and it's one of the things that I struggle with as well, is like finding the time to research, and like it is worth it. So you're writing out your marketing plan, and you want to just write down some of your key targets, you know, work out how you're going to market your artist the best way, and then do the research. And some websites that you should write down just now is hunter.io and Rocket Reach, and also LinkedIn are really good sort of ways of researching and trying to find people's emails. There isn't really, like, essentially everyone in the music industry is trying to, you know, get new contacts and search for new contacts, and we all are just trying, you know, from our laptops at home. So yeah, it is really just about sitting, putting some time in, doing lots of clicks here, there, and yeah, guessing emails and stuff like that. So week 4, you're 4 weeks out. I would say this is a great time to start pitching to the editors on Spotify. If you've got Spotify for artists, then you'll be able to just pitch directly there. I would say if you're a label manager though, or an artist, you know, it's quite handy to just go and have a wee research on, for example, LinkedIn or Twitter, and trying to find some Spotify editors, because it's also really good to do some international TSP pitching, because when you send that through Spotify for artists, it just goes to the area that you're in. You know, the release that I'm going to talk about in the next slide got added to a French playlist, and now it has, you know, most of the audience is French. So pitch to everyone. There's a form online that you can pitch through to Deezer. If anybody doesn't know it, they can drop me an email. I'll give it to them. Tracksource and Beatport, again, if you want to pitch them, it's about trying to find that contact. I'm not going to talk about that. It's a radio monitoring sort of platform that sometimes we use to track a song and see what radio plays it's had. But at this sort of stage, I'd want to send it to the sort of top press targets, the sort of, let's try and get these guys first. If we don't get them, then we'll move on. Week 3, we're going to do, like, I want all the videos content to either be finalized or in progress, and going to definitely be finalized. Get the pre-save link sent around your network. You know, if you're struggling for things to do on your socials, then I would look at doing some sort of Spotify pre-save, YouTube follow campaigns, but don't overdo it. Don't ask people to like follow you on Spotify every single day, you know. Make sure it's all, like, everything's updated, not just on Spotify, but across all your streaming platforms. You know, sign up to all the apps that you can update and whatnot. Follow up is like chase people with emails. There's no point in emailing somebody once, because most of the time that I've actually got something for a release is because I've chased up an email. 2 or 3, you know, it's okay to drop somebody away. Did you, man? You know, don't be, just be like, hey, and I've got some great features and stuff from just being following up. And then, and you know, all of this is my list, so it's not necessarily in the right order for you either, but this is just how my mind sees things best sometimes in terms of the 2 labels, First Run Records and Limbo. Recently, I've been I've been getting like premieres on YouTube and SoundCloud for releases, and that works really, really well with electronic artists and DJs. There's a lot of electronic people like trying to discover new music on SoundCloud, and yeah, there's a lot of really great channels that you're not going to make any money from those. Say you get 100,000 streams on one of these premieres, like it's set up so that you don't make money on it because it's someone else's channel, but that exposure is really great, and it directs people to the buy link. So definitely 2 weeks out, have a wee look and see if there's any platforms or premieres or places you could reach out to. There's also the option for pitching to third-party playlists. This is also a market in itself. Like, you can pay somebody who, it just like a PR company, will then go out and try and get your track into third-party playlists, which are like high performing playlists within streaming platforms, but aren't created by Spotify or Apple. It's created by someone else. I would highly suggest, if you're working with a small budget, you can do a bit of research yourself, and not every release works for pitching to playlists. For example, the track I'm going to talk about in the next slide was a breakbeat track, like a old school ravey breakbeat, and when you are working with a slightly more niche genre like that, then it can be harder. So that's for an example of, like, I would just cross that out. You know, I'm not wanting to do that for this release, and you just put a wee tick beside it when you've done it. Chase press and radio targets. Now, I've had many releases uploaded to BBC Introducing, and I've had amazing support from Introducing Scotland over the years, but I would definitely suggest uploading no sooner than a week before release, because radio play is really great exposure, but you want that radio play to be around the release of your track so that people can then go stream it or go buy it. Of course, for slightly more established artists, it can also work well for getting pre-orders, etc. before. But a lot of the time, BBC Introducing will, snap up your track and play it. So make sure you do it. They're quite quick with it, so make sure you do it quite near. And just upload to. These are some of the places that I look at: Amazing Radio, Submit Hub, Fresh Off the Net, and just push that pre-order in the weekly nup you want to try and get. Pre-order, people landing on that, and if you've got a pre-save as well, that's good to send around your fans. And release date, yeah, self-explanatory, I guess. There's things that you can do on release day for sure, like sending it to places that only accept submissions on the day of release, or some people don't put anything up if it's older than 72 hours. But I just wanted to go through like a release and what that looks like in my work. But that is essentially my strategy and business model that I've made. You might not release your music on streaming platforms, and you might only send your release to your exclusive email list. You might not be on social media, blah, blah, blah. So I'll just briefly talk about these guys. Galaxy 82 is a brand new anonymous alias Scottish producer, came from the 90s, and this track done really, really well. It's sitting at plus 40,000 streams at the moment, and that's the track that was the example of I contacted a French Spotify editor, and he puts it into the playlist Noviettes Electro. So most of the audience and fans are now coming from France, and that's like essentially now a new goal with the release is to reach out to some more French outlets and see if we can keep the momentum going from that. That campaign also had a PR company on board called Power Promotions, who have great connections with Radio 1, and Pete Tong supported the track, which was also amazing, and it really gave it an initial boost. That Radio 1 play is really what you're kind of aiming for if you're working in that electronic, the commercial electronic scene. And then Richie Blacker on the top right there. Richie Blacker is another artist that I work with at Limbo Records. He's from Belfast. He's been, on the scene for he is an example of somebody who's solidly built themselves and also does what they want to do, puts out all the music that he wants to put out. He has built himself from nothing, and it's taken more than 10 years. It doesn't just happen overnight sometimes. So yeah, Richie Blacker is Radio 1's Future Fire artist this year. So that essentially means that any release he does, he will definitely get Radio 1 support. So he's a really great artist to be working with, and done 2 releases with him last year, and I've currently got 2 masters signed to Limbo for this year. And yeah, super exciting times because it will be the first vinyl campaign that I've ran. So yeah, some really cool marketing techniques that I'm talking to Richie Blacker's manager, Marty from Acid booking crew. That's also it's also really great working with artist managers as well as artists. And sometimes you'll find you'll work with somebody really, really well and bounce ideas off them and even become really great friends, So it's been really great working with Richie Blacker's manager in sharing loads and loads of info and tips. But yeah, in terms of the artists that I work with at Limbo, it's totally different from First Run Records, You're not going to be pitching, you're not going to be using the same contacts, is what I'm saying. So, and different marketing strategies as well. So marketing strategies and social media, do we need to be on it? I guess this is bringing me to the sort of end of my presentation, or whatever you want to call it, me rambling on for 40 minutes. So no, you don't need to be on social media. Social media isn't for everyone, and you don't necessarily have to use it, and there are other marketing techniques out there, believe it or not. For example, the pop artist Lorde, she has left all social media this year, and she sold out her entire tour via email campaign, via just sending out email to her fan base. But of course, she's an established artist. She's got a list of solid fans. She can do that. But if you don't like social media, you don't have to be on it. It's not like you can just not go on social media, sit back and not do anything else. Social media is a super effective tool for reaching mass amounts of people. It's also super effective for creating a brand creating an aesthetic and creating a fan base that look up to you. It can be used as a really effective tool for that, but not everybody's goal is that. Maybe you reach out to 5 people every single day, or maybe it's just once a week. You send your track to them, and your goal is to gain one more fan each day. Eventually, you're going to be left with a whole load of fans that you've contacted direct and have a direct communication with you. Yeah, like another marketing technique would be to start an SMS like list and try and get people's phone numbers and directly contact them that way. There's loads of things like to explore there, which I also would like to explore with some of the like other labels that I work with. I don't necessarily think it would like things like email lists are for sure useful. I think developing that for your label is a must. But yeah, there's some cool there's cool things going on that you don't have to follow the crowd. I feel like a lot of the time, like look back to the 60s and the 70s, like artist managers were literally planting stories in the newspapers, and like it was very against the grain and counterculture, and like there's not a whole lot of that at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see the next wave of that, like the kind of the next punk wave, yeah, this is the end of my presentation. I've just got 2 more topics, so I hope that you've enjoyed the sort of label management side. And it's not your normal sort of this is how to run a label workshop, but I hope that it's gave you some insight into the kind of level of releases. So the digital world is very interesting to me, and with Resonate coming up, I've been doing a lot of research and chatting with different people in the digital world, and I like to always have a tech panel at Resonate. So NFTs are probably you've probably heard them, and you've probably been like, oh, that's that cryptocurrency stuff, isn't it? It is, but is it applicable for indie artists? Should we be aware of it? I'm just going to tell you a bit about it. So an NFT is a non-fungible token, and that's a unit of data that lives on a blockchain. And a blockchain is a public ledger, a digital decentralized ledger, proving ownership. NFTs are non-fungible tokens as a limited digital item that you can imagine like a virtual merch or virtual artwork, and you can purchase this from your favorite artist via your cryptocurrency. It can be something rare and one of a kind, and non-fungible means that it can't be replaced. So essentially, we've got people like Kings of Leon selling out tours and etc. and selling NFTs, making a whole lot of cash dollar on them. But NFTs is essentially only going to be viable or relative to you if you've already created a demand. There's still I'm still unsure on how like indie artists or artists more level that I'm working with, like maybe for example somebody like Richie Blacker is maybe at that point where he could maybe consider something like that. But yeah, there is a lot of chat about, oh, it's just a trend, blah blah blah. It's good to know about these things though, because it's just a trend was what they said about peer-to-peer file sharing back in pre-streaming times. And something that is like blows my mind is like the NFTs can be resold. So when an artist sells you a virtual artwork or a wee digital item, whatever it is, you can then go on and resell it. But the artist then earns a percentage on all future transactions. So it actually increases in value, and the artist will increase in value, you know, over the time. So it's super interesting. And there is some companies like there is some companies coming about, I think, like on the tech companies horizon that will try and make a space to encourage indie artists to utilize the NFTs, maybe through running ads to cryptocurrency users. I'm not sure, but the argument here is also like DIY musicians, we don't really have the time like to go and set up NFTs. Like we have to, you know, spend time on focusing on songwriting, content creation, building fan bases, partying, sleeping sometimes. You know, other things I guess you can look at instead of NFTs is like limiting pressings and private Zoom concerts. I don't know if you're looking for new interesting things anyway, but definitely really good to be aware of what they are and why they work for bigger major labels, you know. So last slide, I think artificial intelligence and analytics. I think that's going to be the future, to be honest, for like indie labels. It's going to be able, like, artificial intelligence is a tool that we can use to provide really good like analytics and insights. Currently chatting with a guy at the new platform called Unheard, which is launching soon, and it's essentially a PR company driven by AI data. So if you went and done a wee campaign with them, they can actually, you know, create marketing reports for you that's super detailed, super like great analytics of all your streaming audiences. Their algorithm kind of lets them identify which playlists are best suited for your music, where they would then pitch it to. A company called Audio Shake, they are currently working with their technology and AI to basically give sync, people working in sync, you can basically paste in a reference track, so a YouTube link. So if, you know, my colleague Susan that works for 23rd Precinct as well and is the music publisher here, you know, she's always pitching tracks to films for sync. This Audio Shake platform would allow you to basically scan your whole catalogue and identify which songs sound the most like that reference track, and it's, you know, that'd be super helpful for people with really big back catalogs like us. And yeah, like analytics and data driven sort of marketing reports, or maybe it's you know, just maybe it's just yourself trying to get more into the analytics side of your releases and try and see more insights. And, you know, at the end of the day, see if you know your audience, then you're going to know better where your revenue streams are going to come from, and you're going to better know how to market your music. I think that's definitely going to be the future in terms of analytics. AI is definitely going to be it's going to essentially reduce the gap between the major labels and the indie labels. At the end of the day, the major labels have a whole lot of options. and artificial intelligence will hopefully give that that data driven sort of world, we'll get that into the indies, and hopefully, you know, it's financially viable in those sort of aspects. But it's really good to know a bit about the digital world, where, you know, trends are going, and, you know, do things differently, do things yourself, as much as you can. If you can build a network and fan and tribe around you, then, you know, that is solid fan base is our great goal. And that is me done. So thank you so much for all listening. And yeah, it would be great if you all checked out Resonate, came along. We're holding it at Platform this year on the 18th of November. And yeah, really excited to be holding the 5th year of Resonate there. And yeah, if you'd like to get in touch with me, my email is kayleigh@23rdprecinctmusic.com, and I'm on LinkedIn as well, Instagram. It'd be great to hear from all you guys, and maybe just hear some feedback from you on the digital trends side, or whatever. Any questions you have, be happy to help, and any music that you have, more importantly, would be more than happy to listen to. And at the end of the day, if it's not suited for Limbo, first run, 23rd, you know, myself, Susan and Billy, I've got a vast network. You know, I'm sure we could put you on to some people that would help you out for sure. But yeah, thank you for listening. I've been Kayleigh Robin, and have a nice evening, everyone.